Okay, now, like I promised, we're going to start looking at the evidence. First and foremost is the search warrant that took my computers. This was the terrorist search warrant. Um, this was done February 25th, 2011. And again, it's brought up by Mary Jennings. There's a issue with that in and of itself, but we're going to get on here and we're going to see that on Thursday, February 24th, 2011, the undersigned officer, Trooper Eford, went to my buddy's house uh, to get the computers. Well, that's because my truck was there when I got arrested, and they took my keys and everything. Uh, it wasn't at my buddy's house. It wasn't in the truck. My mom come and got everything out of it because she didn't want anything to end up getting stolen or anything like that. So they got another one for the 25th. Now, you notice there's this whole thing on the search warrant talking about discovering computer materials which pertained to the making of pipe bombs, booby traps, and planning terrorist attacks. I have terrorist manuals on there. In fact, a section of the TM I did for the American Home Guard, the Anti-Terrorist Handbook, actually quotes from the Al Qaeda training manual. Well, I can't quote from the Al Qaeda training manual if I don't have it. And I wasn't advocating violence. I was simply pointing out that terrorists are extremely intelligent and able to rationalize the things that they do. And that's kind of one of those little things about it. Apparently, intelligent people have this incredible ability to use that intelligence to lie to themselves, to manipulate themselves into rationalizing the things that they do. This is point one in the case. You're going to have screenshots of this, and I'm going to zero in on some things and stuff like that in later clips. Now, another interesting point to this is that right down here on another little book, the officer says that because of his knowledge, training, and experience, he knows that seizing information from computers requires investigators to seize most or all electronic storage devices, along with related peripherals, to be searched later by a qualified computer expert in a laboratory or other controlled environment. Now, this goes back to why in the hell the second search warrant was there to remove it from the forensics lab. Now, there's also this little statement down here that, well, this is my statement to the official statement of West Virginia State Police and a motion for discovery to get my materials back. I filed this myself because I didn't have a lawyer. However, I will point out that in this statement that I sent them, I pointed out that my uncle had filed a domestic violence petition February 18th, 2011, with his girlfriend Karen Carlock, whose name was all over it, even though it was later marked out because she couldn't do anything because we hadn't dated or anything like that. But he and I stated that I had that material on my computer. Now, the interesting thing about this is that I also point out several court cases which protect my First Amendment right to read anything I want. Therefore, it's not anything illegal or corrupt or anything. And you'll notice this has been signed and notarized March 10th of 2011. This is immediately done after the taking of my materials. Now, here's the warrant for my arrest. In the corner, you'll notice there's a little shaded area from where someone had torn this and made a copy of it, in which case the material thereof goes back to, for one, the date February 25th of 2011. So why the possession of child pornography if the charge was for terrorism? If my uncle made a false terrorist threat, then using this would be illegal. Now, it needs to be brought up that that's evidence to be used. You're going to see all of this. Now, the problem with the argument that I made is that the bad faith clause for the exclusionary rule doesn't apply to an action taking in good faith. Meaning, if they know that the evidence is falsified or corrupted or anything else, then they shouldn't be bringing this up. They shouldn't be using it. Now, you're going to see a recording of me and Lieutenant Deeds. Lieutenant Deeds is from the Office of Professional Standards. Trooper Eford came into the room and made copies when this whole thing occurred, listening to what we were saying. And in the recording, you can hear where the copier is running. And I even gave Deeds a copy of the search warrant, or the statement for the material seized in the search warrant that I sent to the forensics lab. Now, that torn little corner there shows where they pulled it away from another piece of paper. That other piece of paper was in fact the statement that goes along with the search warrant, the statement of probable cause by the officer, in which case he stated that he got a second search warrant. For some reason, the courthouse doesn't want to divulge that information, saying I have to go to my lawyer. So I'm going to try to get that from him at a later date, and it'll, of course, be put up here as well.
Hey, how you doing? How you doing? You all right? I'm doing fine. Here's the packet I told you about. There's a couple computer disks in there, one of which has the recording of Thomas Keller that I took when he was doing a interrogatory when he decided to insert himself in a lawsuit with me, claiming that Trooper Eford came to him, where on the search warrant it says he came to Trooper Eford. There's another paper in here, as a matter of fact. It was, I actually sent it to the forensics lab in Charleston because I didn't know anything about down here, but it was signed and notarized regardless. That meant that the whole argument between me and him, that was back in May. This right here is image of me from Southern Regional Jail, the mugshot from where Trooper Palmetier pretty much beat the crap out of me. I had it was taken like minutes after I got a big square block on the side of my head where he ran me into the steel pipe that was used to hold up a clothesline in my buddy's grandmother's backyard. I don't remember specifically. I have to look it up in here. I got all the dates and everything named in here, court cases and stuff like that you'd be able to look up. You probably have to...
But the information should be in that written.
All the information is written down in here. Like I said, you should be able to find it and everything else. And... mentions statement she's made under court, under record, when the whole thing was appealed to second court, claiming that her mother's prosecutor and Trooper Duckworth basically coerced her, which she said that in open court under oath. And I don't want anybody over here.
Well, there's really not much of it. We can go to the topic.
No, I don't have a way. There's a bunch of little evidence in that, and then in a unrelated issue that I'm having with through harassment from another police department. Right now, as it stands, I already have a recording of where I turned over exculpatory evidence to Raleigh County Prosecutor's Office.
Right.
They didn't want to accept the exculpatory evidence,
Right.
which,
Which agency was there?
Beckley Police Department.
Okay.
Includes, in which I even turned in evidence to a Captain Rogers at the Beckley Police Department in the whole affair because, well, my name was brought into it, but I wasn't mentioned by either the victim or the other witness or anybody else there. But everything was said where the cop said that I did this, or that cop in particular. And it's really interesting because one of the people who was accused of it, he wasn't mentioned in anything either. His brother was, but he wasn't. And they arrested him. None of the evidence points to him, and I've already been set up, so I'm doing everything I can to basically help him on it. The fact that I basically had to force the Raleigh County Prosecutor's Office into accepting that evidence, and whether or not they turn it over to his defense attorney or either their defense attorney is going to come up under a matter of criminal action under the Raleigh County Prosecutor's Office.
Okay.
And I mean, flat out, to be honest with you, when we was talking on the phone, and you was making what I basically took as excuses to it. I really don't have a whole lot of faith in you really doing much of anything, to be honest with you. But in this whole situation where it involves, or at least in one case where it involves an FBI agent, namely Michael Hayden. It took me, about 6 years of trying to backtrack through the system and everything else to find this guy, and I just got lucky. I got all the information I needed in about 20 minutes. Found out who his real name was, that he lived in Princeton, West Virginia. There's only 3 FBI agents that handle southern West Virginia, and he was the only one he's been here for 10 years, so he's the only one that's been here in time for that whole little situation to manifest itself. So everything basically runs back to him. I've already called Pennsylvania and everything else. Now, I mentioned specifically that on the search warrant they never mentioned that USB card that's in the BlackBerry, which is one reason I was wanting a copy of the evidence, because if my pictures and everything else from the BlackBerry is there, then the USB card is there. If not, it was never mentioned in the search warrant as being part of the, with the BlackBerry. But it does say, the phone was taken with the battery in it, and the BlackBerry carries in order to get the USB card, the serial numbers and all that, you got to actually take the battery out and play with it.
Yeah.
So, and that statement that I sent to the Western Forensics Lab back in, I think it was May. No, March, I'm sorry. I was right after my computer was taken right in February of last year. March, I sent a thing up there talking about the evidence was taken based on the fact that the issue with me and Thomas Kelly. He's already been charged with molesting his son TJ, Thomas Jr. And I never really put much stock in it because nobody wants to believe that, somebody would do something like that, especially when you're related to them, until later on. There's also multiple issues with Karen Carlock and everything else.
Right, but all this stuff is written down in here.
All this stuff is on here, and in fact, if I'm not mistaken, which I can't really tell you how I know this, but I got hold of an interesting little tidbit of information about as part of well, you remember the whole COINTELPRO fiasco a couple years back with the FBI where they were spying on U.S. citizens and everything else? Well, basically they've pretty much pulled the whole thing out of mothballs because of the war on terrorism and other stuff. There's a whole issue of bringing informants from out of state, or from one state, bringing them into another through the FBI, and I basically know how it works out here in West Virginia. Pretty much, well, hell, we don't have states' rights here in West Virginia. The West Virginia Constitution, Article 1, pretty much cancels that out of the West Virginia State Constitution. But basically, like I said, all the information's there. All that's pretty much handled. The only real concern I have is that, like I said, I had evidence related to the thing with Ashley Redden, the new charges with her. And in fact, hell, you can just bring up the warrants as is and just tell there's all kinds of things wrong with it. First of all, both her statement, Leah Kirk's statement, was written by Trooper Duckworth on a plain sheet of copy paper. In the case of Leah Kirk's statement, it was put with an actual form, the actual form that, for the state police for taking statements that they see accurate. In Ashley Redden's case, which came up a month later, and the only reason the charges for her were brought against me was because I was charged with assaulting a police officer based on the information given to Trooper Duckworth by FBI agent Michael Kaczynski, who doesn't exist, and a harassing phone call statement because I supposedly called the FBI threatening Duckworth and everything else. Now, the interesting thing to this is that when I had originally called the FBI, it was to get an investigation done on Trooper Duckworth. I had spoken to a lieutenant out here, and then pretty much he took a statement and everything got swept under the rug. Nothing came out of it, nothing got done. So, like I said, I really don't have too much belief that you're going to get much done yourself. It seems to be the whole idea of protecting each other, and that seems to be the thing going on. That's the way I look at it, the way I view it, and everything else. But on top of that, he threatened me over the phone. Specifically, he threatened to harm myself, Ashley Redden, and my mother over the phone to me. I know the calls were taped, so I don't think I told you this on the phone. I threatened him on the phone back, hoping he would bring charges against me because most of the discoveries with the recording and show a nice little issue of conspiracy. You know, he called me back trying to get me to admit to threatening him, which I didn't do, and he called me back again trying to talk to me. I took the battery out of my cell phone at the time because of the GPS trackers and cell phones and all that. Basically doubled back, set up on the hill, and watched the Beckley police drive around in circles. So there's probably a dispatch report from from April 19th of 2006 for the Beckley police going back to the FBI. You know, all this is stuff that you can pretty much find just by calling people and asking. You really don't need a search warrant. I mean, looking at court records and everything else, being copies, don't need any of that. You can go in, get copies of it, look at it, see what I'm talking about. And most of that's outlined, including the fact that the argument between me and Thomas Keller, and you can look at court records to see where he has brought DVP on me for threatening to blow up the entire city of Beckley. I don't know how the hell I'd do that one, but I'm pretty cocky, but I ain't really I don't think I'm that cocky. Then when that didn't pan out, it became the terrorist search warrant. Then following that, it became involving himself in a lawsuit I had with my old landlord. And so it's been a constant process. Since y'all haven't charged me with terrorism and y'all done passed it up to the U.S. Attorney's Office here in Beckley, I have an interesting question as to why him nor Karen Carlock haven't been charged with making a false claim on false terrorist threat.
Yeah.
And then again, that goes back to the fact that according to Karen Carlock, she's an informant for Trooper Duckworth, and he's her buddy, and he'll cover up for her and everything else. She's also made a false police report about her ex-boyfriend, Ricky Popovich, having child porn on his computer, to which his computer was taken. He came down here, put out paperwork and everything else for Trooper Duckworth. The computer was taken, no child porn was found on it, and it was given to Karen Carlock. It was never returned to him. So that in and of itself has an issue. I mean, there's, like I said, like I told you on the phone, there's a whole pattern of behavior here. And I mean, you can look at evidence, you can narrow it down to something small and say this incident, that incident, but it's an ongoing pattern of behavior. And in the case of Trooper Eford, he was the one who got the warrant on me for stalking Ashley Redden when she seen me at the mall and then went and made the statement that I was stalking her. Okay, well, I have a material witness to the fact that I wasn't. I seen her and told my friend who left to leave she was there. That was it. Which is the whole reason I was able to, they let me have a bond again on my bond revocation hearing, because she didn't agree to it, especially given the fact there was a material witness there. So that issue in and of itself, on top of the fact that, he's the one who gets the search warrant, and I don't really know what gets said back here, when you guys are having coffees on your lunch breaks or whatever. And I'm pretty sure there's a lot of crosstalk that goes on without, well, I know there is. I've been in the military. I've been involved in operations and stuff, and I have uncles who are police officers. I know there's a lot of crosstalk. So I'm not really quite sure what's going on or to what extent.
That'll help you. But let's have a drink and hold up like that.
But that whole situation comes back rather odd, considering that the person who arrested me both times for warrants, even though he wasn't there to arrest me for the warrants, was coming back as volunteer. And like I told you, with the whole Teresa Bowling shoot, and to be honest with you, I mean, in my personal opinion, when it was published in the newspaper that they knew that he was shooting guns around the kids and beating on his wife for 3 years and didn't do anything about it, y'all should have done the investigation. Well, I guess I go back to that pattern of behavior. It's an ongoing process. Most of the information's there. Most of the relevant information that can be tracked down through court cases is there.
All right. Well,
you should be able to find it within less than a week.
Okay. Well, I'll take a look and see. See if we see any violations of anything. Okay. I mean, that's all I can do, and go from there.
Well, put it this way: if you get a search warrant for my records from Sprint, particularly for that day in particular, you can already see the whole situation with me calling the FBI and then the FBI calling me back twice.
Yeah.
If you get the search warrant...
But you got arrested for that.
I got arrested for that, and they got dismissed due to insufficient evidence.
Okay.
Due to the fact there was...
Was that in state court?
That was, yes, magistrate court. In fact, the FBI agent who was reported for it, the name mentioned on the file was Michael Kaczynski, which runs into a problem, because either I'm telling you the truth about the whole me calling the FBI agent, in which case that is, pretty much shows a conspiracy between Trooper Duckworth and Agent Hayden, or I'm lying, and either way, it still shows that a false name was given for a supposed FBI agent, and there was no record, no probable cause, no statement from an actual credible source. The FBI agent was never identified as an actual FBI agent. It was just some name slapped on a paper, which means Trooper Duckworth was falsifying evidence. And then you look at that with the whole pattern of what's going on with Palmatier, Efred, Thomas Keller, Karen Carlock, which oddly enough goes right back to Trooper Duckworth. Like I said, there's a whole pattern of behavior there. You can look at the evidence and see that, I mean, there's plenty of little indeficiencies. In the case of Ashley Redden, on her statement, it wasn't attached to a form. It was actually attached to the same form as Leah Kirk's statement, but it was taken 3 months later. And it was signed, instead of being signed down here, it was signed down like lengthways here across the edge of it. And from what I was told by Ashley Redden when she got in contact with me, after I got off house arrest from the whole first incident, that because I basically caught her on it, because I told her it looked like what we had been through in the military, where they tell us not to sign even blank sheets of paper or anything like that, because somebody will write whatever they want on it, and then it's taken as a statement against us, and it's used in the UN War Crimes Court and everything else. And like I told her, it just didn't seem all that, how do I put it, didn't seem to make a whole lot of sense. More importantly, according to, and I have to actually cite the West Virginia codes on fraud violations, but in order for a official statement to be an official statement, it would either have to have the signature of the person holding office able to take that official statement, or the seal of the office. Ashley's statement was nothing more than something written on a plain sheet of copy paper, written by Trooper Duckworth, signed by her and her mother, with no signature of Trooper Duckworth, which pretty much meant that that wasn't a credible, I mean, it couldn't even be used as probable cause.
So let me take a look at this stuff.
I mean, it's all mentioned on there.
Okay, yeah. There's something here. I'll go with it.
Okay.
Okay, now, when you get into looking at Thomas Keller's statements, he admits that, well, that I threatened him first with his son. That colors his credibility. The fact that Lieutenant Deeds says that he turned everything over to the feds, well, that colors his credibility because they're trying to put it off on the feds, but yet they bring the charges against me. Now, this goes back to that second search warrant, which removed everything from the forensics lab. It shows they're blatantly trying to cover up evidence. All of this comes down to a simple reality. All of my arguments for exculpatory evidence and actions taken in bad faith were conjecture until they proved them by me giving them the evidence, telling him the evidence I was giving him, handing it to him, recording him when we had this little discussion and his false claim to turning it over to the feds and that they weren't going to charge me and all this other stuff. Because April 10th, 2012, I told Captain White, the head of the Office of Professional Standards for the West Virginia State Police, that if he didn't do something about Trooper Eford covering up for the criminal activity of other cops taken into uniform, I was going to go to the governor. April 11th, the warrant was issued for my arrest for child pornography. As you can tell, the original search warrant that took it was an alleged terrorist threats. Now, they never found any plans to do anything. They never found anything other than a few terrorist training manuals, which is on my computer for research. That's it. And I admitted to those. The statement to the forensics lab, I stated that. And in fact, in paragraph 2, I stated that if they looked on my BlackBerry, or my Android, I meant my BlackBerry, if they looked on my Android, they would find the argument between me and Thomas Keller. Now, the fact that they have taken evidence out of the forensics lab shows they've tampered with evidence. The fact that they have a arrest warrant for me going back to February 25th, when the search warrant that took my computers was terrorism, and they haven't charged me with terrorism, nor have they charged my uncle with making false terrorist threats, which falls under the same code. What you have here is another situation where they're trying to threaten and intimidate me. The fact that I have that recording between me and Captain White's secretary also comes into play. That, I think I'll play that for you some point later. That comes into play. That explains the whole difference between February 25th and April 11th. The fact that the search warrant took the computers away from me on February 25th also brings into the fact there's a good possibility the police might have put that on there anyways. Well, they didn't as far as I know, but it's a possibility just by looking at the evidence as it stands. Now, the fact that they were going through such trouble to cover up me getting that evidence relates to exculpatory evidence in another case, because I'm back in court with this whole issue with Ashley Redden. And they're so worried about what Ashley told me and me telling it to everyone else. I've already made a video for that, I just haven't put it up on YouTube yet. But we're going to listen to Thomas Keller. Now, Thomas Keller admits that that I had threatened him with testifying for his son, that he was still in court over the child molestation issue, that he had lost parental rights to his children because of the molestation case. And I gave this evidence to Lieutenant Deeds. This goes into an issue. Now, there's some other stuff on here that I cut short because it got into the criminal conduct of certain people who are in-laws to Mary Jennings, related to her, the association between Duckworth Palmatier, Mary Jennings, Daryl Lilly, Bobby Redden, Wayne Kirk, all of these people. The fact of the matter is, they're put in a position because now they're trying to cover something up. Now, remember I mentioned that Leah Kirk had a relative running the forensics lab? That would be Thomas L. Kirk. He retired from the West Virginia State Police in '96, I believe, spent 14 years as a federal prosecutor. And yet, his family is involved in gun running, drug running, child pandering, a whole series of other issues involved with other families involved in criminal activity. So you got to ask yourself, uh, why and they haven't even been indicted. The way it works is a cop comes forward and says, I swear that a crime has been or is being committed based on this, and they arrest you. Then you have your preliminary hearing in which you get to examine the evidence to find out if there was actually probable cause. At the preliminary hearing, Magistrate Massey said the only reason he found probable cause for my arrest was because another magistrate found probable cause, which is a violation of West Virginia Rules of Criminal Procedure 1, the complaint, and 5.1, the preliminary hearing. Now, all that being placed into the situation, you're also going to look at the fact that Thomas Keller says Trooper Eford came to him, which is a contradictory statement to Eford's testimony in both the search warrant and at the preliminary hearing. It colors into a whole different factor, which conflicting stories, the fact that Thomas Keller was involved with child molestation cases, and they're going through all this trouble to cover up for him. See, it's one thing to charge me for something that was on my computer that my uncle put there. It's another thing to cover up the exculpatory evidence by taking it out of the forensics lab when the cop knows, and that's why he put on the search warrant for the terrorism charges, I wouldn't even charge of terrorism, but for the terrorism search warrant, that he knows that the computers have to be investigated by experts in a controlled environment, yet he took the evidence out of that controlled environment. The fact that all of this comes up now after I threatened to go to the governor. And there's a video on here where I point out that I had gone to the governor and said it's a little bit of security. Well, of course it was. I put that little building block in motion. See, all my arguments to the exclusionary rule and exculpatory evidence and them covering up evidence was pretty much conjecture until they moved to cover them up, which is why I exposed that little point to them, because I wanted them to take steps to cover it up, therefore proving they were acting in bad faith. And this throws everything out. The fact that Lieutenant Deeds from the Office of Professional Standards is covering up for the misconduct of other officers by engaging in misconduct himself puts him, in that same act of bad faith light that all his actions are taking to conceal criminal misconduct by police officers. The fact that this went to Captain White and he covered that up. The fact that by laying false charges against me. And in fact went to the Superintendent of State Police, Colonel Smithers. Again, shows that criminality, which is why I went to the governor. Now, if the governor allows this criminality to take place, that undermines his lawful authority and everything coming down to all of these police officers. If it'll happen in Raleigh County, and it's happening with a professional standards officer here in Raleigh County, and the state police here in Raleigh County, people in other counties can do the same thing I just did and pretty much show where the whole system is corrupt. Now, what that means is you create a pattern of behavior, which you can show, and everything I'm doing comes up into that whole evidence to a pattern of behavior, and if you take the similar steps, it comes into that same area of showing actions taken in bad faith. Therefore, the exclusionary rule and the fruit of the forbidden tree doctrine means that the evidence has to be thrown out. With no evidence, they can't go to court. Now, the fact that most of these officers are lazy and they can't investigate, instead they just, you're guilty because we want you to be guilty, so they go and fabricate evidence, that's going to destroy 90% of the criminal cases in West Virginia if people start doing this, and it'll undermine their legal authority in court, in open court. Now, that puts the governor's office in between a rock and a hard place, because he either has to go in and do something about it, which means removing a lot of people in positions of power, or allowing himself to violate the laws and rules of the state, allowing him to be impeached, which probably won't happen, but regardless, it'll give a basis for a lot of people to just turn around and walk away. And the more people who use this, the more people who put this evidence out on the internet, the same way I'm doing, creates more evidence to prove that pattern of behavior. So, yeah. Now, See, bullets and bombs aren't the answer. The system itself is designed to take care of itself. This is why you have all of these rights and right to freedom of press and everything else. The best weapon you have against corruption in the government is the law itself. I simply applied that. Now, okay, that's all within my legal right to do so. None of it falls under terrorism or anything else. And since this is local matter and this is small state matter, they can't use the national security BS. So what's going to happen is they're going to be proven to be corrupt. Now, what they're doing is they're trying to cover up for information that I have that they don't want released. That's what all this stuff from 6 years ago comes under. That video's already been made. Haven't put it out yet, but I will. Probably before this one. Now, we're going to hear the clip from Thomas Keller and take a look at the evidence and the other stuff. Now, bear in mind, according to Lieutenant Deeds, they turned all this over to the feds, but haven't been charged by the feds, because being investigated by the feds, being charged by the feds, means that the feds actually do their job, and they'll get that information. Now, they can't just say, we don't have a copy of the information, so don't give it to you. If they don't have a copy of it, stuff like dispatch records and everything else, which dispatch records will prove that Trooper Eford was at Detachment 6 when I was talking to Lieutenant Deeds. Which, if they don't have them, they can't just say, we don't have them and not give you anything. They have to give you a sworn statement with the seal of the office of the people able to hold that record to show that they don't have that record. Therefore, showing lack of record and lack of evidence on all this other stuff, dash cam videos, the mass amount of dispatch records out there for different areas of this, which will come into that other video I told you about, is going to show, well, if they have to say they don't have the record, it's going to show a mass of trying to cover something up. Which is going to go back to that whole clause of bad faith. And just to give you an idea, since some stuff happened with them harassing my students from the Beckley Police, which goes back to an Officer Redden acting through Officers Capehart and Corporal Stewart from the Beckley Police Department, and a Beckley Police informant known as Taryn Price, who's also connected to the Reddens through Ashley Redden's cousin, Travis Rose, who's also known to be an informant. What you have here is a bunch of cops using informants to falsify evidence on people that they just don't like because they don't want other information and proof of their criminality to be brought out. So since they really can't catch me doing anything illegal, or really, to be honest, since they can't really find anything big enough to pin on me aside a few minor infractions and things they have to fabricate themselves, what you get is a lot of falsification of records. Now, that other video I was talking about is going to mention exactly the entire story, everything from start to finish. And it's going to mention a lot of the players involved. And it's also going to mention what they're scared of, what they don't want me to mention, which goes back to what I was talking about Leah's uncle in the Fusion Center is actually former State Police Superintendent Thomas L. Kirk. I believe it's her grandfather, not her uncle. And the fact that he retired from the State Police in '96, spent 14 years as a federal prosecutor, currently is the West Virginia head of intelligence, runs the Fusion Center out of Charleston, is in Governor Tomlin's cabinet, was in Governor Manchin's cabinet before that, and quite honestly, he's primarily put in that position to have cops protecting cops to cover up for his own little criminal organization, and that's what they're trying to hide behind. But we'll get into that later. What's important is Thomas Keller admitting to being a child molester, admitting that I had, as he says, threatened him with his son, which was I was going to testify his son on his son's behalf, which is where the catching him with the child porn on my computer and some other stuff came to. And I'm also going to put up a copy of the statement that I sent to the forensics lab after that to look at it, to show that I actually had admitted it was there, that the so-called terrorist manuals were there, but they were research for books. And we're going to go into the fact that, again, Lieutenant Deeds saying that he turned everything over to the feds. Yet here it is, you know, a year, over a year later, that they're charging me with this child porn stuff, and only after I had told Captain White's secretary that if either he or Lieutenant Dees didn't get a hold of me to get this additional evidence of magistrates and cops acting within conjunction to perform certain criminal activities and organized crime, that I was going to go to the governor's office. Which there's a video up on the internet where I said I was going to the governor's office. That would be the one about a little bit of security.
Mr. Cole, I believe that's all the questions I have. Mr. Collins may have some questions, and depending on what his questions are.
I do actually, but let's see here. Where to start? Mr. Keller, did you file a complaint with the West Virginia State Police about a terrorist threat on February 24th of 2011? Okay, Mr. Keller, did you also request a domestic violence petition on February 18th, 2011?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Keller, wasn't the domestic violence petition denied because it wasn't credible?
Yes. Because I waited too long to file it.
Now, why did you file a terror threat after you filed the domestic violence petition?
I filed the terrorist threat and the domestic violence petition.
Allow me...
And then the state troopers picked it up and come and asked me questions about it.
Okay, well, Mr. Keller, allow me to clarify some stuff here. This is the first page of the petition. We can enter this in as Exhibit 1 or whatever. It is filed February the 18th. Following that, here is a copy of the the search warrant from the West Virginia State Police, in which the responding officer says he came to your house on, I believe, here we go. This would be page 2 of 5. Well, this is a point that Mr. Keller has reason to lie. We've already had our disputes, and...
I've just read through it.
Well, that's fine.
You don't have to respond.
That's fine. But, as I said, it's stated by the state trooper that he came to your house on February 24th. Again, I would like to ask you why there's such a difference in time in this.
I don't know why they all come. I know the state trooper came to my house, asked me the questions about it, and they were giving me some about petition. So therefore, I answered them.
Okay. Now, didn't my mother testify against you concerning unemployment fraud?
Objection.
Not your objection.
Yes, and she also said things at the unemployment office was not true, and it was true.
Didn't I also offer to testify against you on behalf of your son in the case where you're accused of child molestation?
Objection.
Note the objections. Continue.
You addressed me about my kids.
No, I said I was going to testify against you. Isn't that correct?
Same objection.
Did I not also testify to your stealing other people's property, namely a chainsaw, Harold Hines Jr.'s bow, committing fraud, stealing your truck from the repo man with the aid of Robin Boland, stalking your son in Mapscott?
Objection. Object to the form of argumentative.
So I've never filed a complaint with the mail service against Karen Carlock and yourself for potential mail fraud.
You object to that. It's argumentative, and irrelevant.
No, it's not actually, because it shows that he has reasons for making false accusations.
This is more object to the narrative.
Okay, that's fine. Another question I like to ask. When exactly did you become involved in this case? Contact Brent, West Virginia, or otherwise?
After the mistake.
Was it after the domestic violence petition?
It was.
Okay. Are you doing that out of revenge?
No.
Okay. Interesting question here. Wasn't Teresa Daniels an attorney for this law firm? Your court-appointed attorney in the child molestation case?
Yes, it was. Yes, over a year ago.
Okay.
Yes, 7.
And didn't you lose all your parental rights in that case?
Yes. For right now. Because it's in the state Supreme Court.
Until such time as new evidence can be provided, correct? Or new witnesses.
Objection.
Now, let me get this straight, you contacted Rent, West Virginia, correct?
Yes, I did.
Okay, are you doing that to get revenge because of the accusations I've leveled against you?
Objection, asked and answered. He's already testified.
Okay.
It doesn't matter.
Did you sell, trade, or give Omer and Sharon Richmond prescription pain pills?
Objection.
No.
That's irrelevant.
What is your income, Mr. Keller?
Objection. That is irrelevant.
I stand. Also, here is, if you would like, another exhibit for you. It is the papers filed by the, what is this? This was the March 3rd hearing from the domestic violence petition, in which it is stated plainly that Mr. Kelly's statements were not credible, and his alleged threats, or threats to, quote-unquote, blow up Beckley using gas lines and the power
I'm
grid.
going to object. This is not a line of questioning. This is a pontification on behalf of Mr. Cameron.
Well,
You just perform. If you've got a question, please pose it. If not,
I'm done questioning. If you don't want evidence that your witness here is not credible,
Mr. Collins, I'm not here to listen to you get on the soapbox. If you want to ask questions,
I asked my question.
please do. If not, if you're done,
I'm done. I said I'm done.
Mr. Keller, you have a right to read this deposition.
Okay, now this video runs almost 50 minutes. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make another video for the prosecutor's office, the Beckley police, and where they were harassing my students and fabricated evidence and all that other stuff. That's a really unique situation, and wow. You know what? Here's the thing about it. I'm pretty sure at this point, after them blaring all over the internet and the news and everything that I was arrested for child porn, there's going to be people trying to take my head off. Most likely, there are probably going to be people trying to take my head off because, well, the cops want them to, and they're just going to use that, oh, well, he's a child pornographer, he's into little kids or whatever, as some pretext against my character, so that everyone else just kind of says, oh, well, he's scum and we'll let it be and we don't care. Here's the thing about it. I try to protect my cousin. Now, my cousin exhibits some serious mental instabilities because of the whole molestation thing. And you know, I always told him that I would protect him. You know, that if anybody messed with him, I'd deal with him, you know. There's a part of me that feels like I seriously let him down. So if he sees this, I'm sorry. But here's the thing about it. I'm not going to live under a gun. I'm not going to sit here and let you give me this false record of all the things I'm arrested for that I haven't been convicted of. And, you know, try to destroy my character and my good name and everything else. Granted, no, no. It's like this. There's a certain point that I used to be scared uh, that you guys were going to try to kill me. I still think you're probably going to try to. The difference is, the real difference is, I don't care. Either you'll try to kill me or you won't, or someone will. It won't matter. If I do nothing, I don't have a future. If I do nothing and I keep letting you try to destroy my life and leave me nowhere but the gutter to fucking live in, the only people that's going to associate with me is going to be other criminals and pedophiles and everything else because they think I'm one of them. Here's the thing about it. I'm not going to have a life. You know, uh, so I have nothing to lose. I can fight you and I can get all this cleared up. I can put you guys exactly where you belong, uh, which is, well, to be honest, you belong in prison. But I'm pretty sure by the time everything is said and done, even if you aren't there, you should be. Even if you don't lose your jobs, you should. Uh, I'm going to expose you to the world. Uh, that's where it becomes important. You see, once I expose what you're doing to me, there's other people out there. When I was in Southern Region, I watched this news hearing, or this news uh, story on TV where they was talking about some guy who was shot by the West Virginia State Police, shot in his home because he refused to resisted arrest or whatever and pulled a gun on a cop and was shot down. Okay, maybe, just maybe, he was guilty. However, then they were talking about, well, he was also charged with these child porn charges, and he had sexual charges pressed against him. And here's the thing about it. You guys want to fabricate the evidence to make people into sex offenders while you're protecting pedophiles. I don't understand that. You want to charge someone with being a pedophile uh, so that you can monitor them and have access to their internet accounts and monitor every little thing they do in life and have that control over them. Uh, but at the same time, you're out there protecting pedophiles. Oh, right. Those are your pedophiles. Your friends. Pretty sure probably some of y'all's family. You know, you kill me, you only prove me right. And as far as some little punk stepping up to me on the street trying to make a name for himself or kick my ass or whatever, please. That's kind of the rule of the streets, ain't it? Oh yeah, except for you get these little punks that want to jump up 4 or 5 at a time, and yeah, I whoop somebody's ass. Well, here's the thing about it: I've beaten some of those punks 4 and 5 at a time, and well, I don't care. See, Andre, you couldn't beat me. You kicked my ass, but you couldn't beat me. That's why you kicked my ass when I was handcuffed. If I wanted to get out of that stupid arm bar where Moore was trying to break my arm after asking me where I threw my cell phone because I told my friends to call my mom and tell her I was getting arrested and threw my cell phone in the floor, and I pointed out he wants to do that stupid front sweep standing cross armbar takedown crap and start trying to break my arm. Okay, I got out of it, laid on the ground, put my hands behind my back. Wasn't going to resist arrest at that point in time. Wasn't a point. Now, you guys have been exposed for covering up evidence. Let's face it, Andre, in the Teresa Bowling shooting, you admitted to being good friends with Trooper Duckworth. Every time it's come time to arrest me, you've always been there. And you've always been the one to come do it. So, let me guess, Greg doesn't want a round two with me. And, oh, you want to take a personal stake in this because your little buddy doesn't like me. That's cool. Only problem is you forget you came to my apartment to arrest me for this child porn bullshit on April 14th. In fact, right after I put that video on the internet. And in so doing, there's dispatch records, witnesses at my apartment building that seen you, some of them that spoke with you. It's not gonna be good. See, that shows you're intentionally trying to, have some sort of confrontation with me. And then there's that whole thing where the day that you kicked the shit out of me, how I complained about my poor little arm. The whole time you were beating the fuck out of me, I didn't say a damn word. And you got down there at Southern Regional Jail, and the nurse asked me if I was okay because of that big abrasion across my forehead. And I told her, yeah, you beat the hell out of me while I was handcuffed. And you said that comment about, well, I want to make you my little bitch. Well, guess what? That's on my medical records. The way the medical records at Southern Regional Jail is set up, the same way it's set up at the VA hospital, which means it goes on the computer. And even if they change something or update it, the prior record, the prior statement for what's on there is put on there. And, well, all you did was help defeat my little case. All I got out of it was an ass kicking. Please. I've had ass kickings before. I haven't won every fight I've gotten in. I've had people beat the hell out of me a hell of a lot worse than you did. But you helped build my case. You guys have been so lax in trying to pretend that you're adherent to the legal code and the Constitution and the law. You think you can just do whatever you want. You're honestly, in my opinion, no different than the Taliban. You have the badge to hide behind, but everything comes down to, well, I have a gun and I can kick your ass because this badge means I can say you obstructed or you resisted, and I'll just make a probable cause for whatever, and blah, blah, blah. And well, here's the problem when it comes to fabricating evidence. Hell, even in Teresa Bowling shooting, you knew that he was shooting the gun in the house, threatening to kill his wife 3 years before he pulled the trigger on her. And you didn't do anything about it because you felt it would endanger her life. Yeah, really? Well, come on. You were protecting him. That's why he asked for you and Greg Duckworth. That's why it's in the article in the Teresa Bowling shooting. This is just a little taste of the evidence. This is me saying, here it is. Plaster it out, let the whole world see it. Now, you got to ask yourself, what comes next? You can kick my ass and try to trump up some bullshit charges, but, well, let's face it, I defame my character, they're not going to stick. Hell, I haven't even been indicted for that child porn shit, and, there's that whole thing about I have to be indicted before I go to trial, and, yeah, I know I'm not going to get discovery material, and they don't have to give it to me until 20 days before I go to trial. So what's going to happen is I'm going to sit around here just like the malicious wounding case and wait till February, and then in 9 months, they're going to release me due to lack of evidence. And right now, the only thing you've done is prove your own criminality and, to be honest, your own mental weakness. You guys are great. The sad part of all this is that the evidence I'm putting out here is going to let a lot of criminals get away. A lot of very bad people are going to be able to just turn around and walk because of the failed leadership of the West Virginia State Police. Well, hell, West Virginia, period. So, you have to wonder exactly where all this is going and how everything went so wrong. I know you feel it coming, right?